Europe is a place that is home to many big countries. Yes, I know, truly groundbreaking stuff. When you look further at a map of Europe, look at the fine details spread across the continent, you'll see that wedged in between many big countries are small ones, minuscule ones that we call microstates. And when you look at Europe's long and eventful history, you'll see that it is nothing more than a glorified battle royale, with one power trying to dominate the other until there is only one remaining. And when you see how micro these microstates are, it's not hard to imagine how easy it would be for a larger neighbour to simply steamroll through and take over everything. But yet, modern Europe still has these microstates, despite the fact that these microstates are surrounded by much larger neighbours that could come through and take control in an afternoon. But why have these places not succumbed to the might of their much larger neighbours? Why do these places exist? Why do they still exist? And most of all, how did Europe's microstates survive? A microstate is a sovereign state with a very tiny geographical area or population, typically both in many situations. International law, however, does not provide clear definitions of what a state or very small entity is. The majority of researchers use a threshold to determine whether a state is a microstate by applying it to either one factor, such as the size of its territory or population, or a combination of many separate factors. While it is generally acknowledged that microstates are the smallest of all states worldwide, there is a disagreement about the variable or variables or threshold that should be used to identify which political entities should be classified as microstates and which should not. So because I'm a basic bitch, I'll use the microstate Wikipedia list that defines a microstate as a sovereign state with a land area less than 1,000 square kilometers and or with a population of less than 500,000 people. The microstates listed from smallest land area to largest are the Vatican City, Monaco, Nauru, Tuvalu, San Marino, Liechtenstein, the Marshall Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, Maldives, Malta, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, Seychelles, Palau, Andorra, St. Lucia, the Federated States of Micronesia, Singapore, Tonga, Dominica, Bahrain, Kiribati, Sao Tome and Principe, Samoa, Brunei, Vanuatu, the Bahamas, Belize and Iceland. Because I'm even more of a basic bitch, I will avoid discussing microstates outside of Europe, because all of them on the list, except Brunei, are island nations, and it is obvious that geography played a significant part in their existence and survival. These island microstates were granted independence mostly because of their distance from their colonizers, and the local population wasn't seen to be too tiny to maintain themselves effectively. Because of this restriction on discussing microstates outside of Europe, sorry Brunei, this leaves us with the European group of microstates, these being the 6 smallest states in Europe by area: Andorra, Liechtenstein, Malta, Monaco, San Marino and the Vatican City. But to condense even more, even though Iceland is mentioned in the microstate Wikipedia list, it's Iceland, an island, and despite its small population, is far from a microstate. There's also Malta, an island, so that too will be dropped off the list, and in its place I'll add Luxembourg, who, although being considerably bigger than all the microstates in Europe put together, exhibits certain microstate traits. So with all that out of the way, let's get to our 6 European microstates: Andorra, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Monaco, San Marino and the Vatican City, and answer the age-old question: how did Europe's microstates survive? These 6 European microstates are the relics of a period when there were several minor fiefdoms, or what may be called miniature microstates throughout Europe. Depending on the criteria, each of the 6 remains independent. 4 of the microstates, Andorra, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg and Monaco, were able to survive invasion by bigger powers because they existed in an area where larger powers had rival claims, played the larger powers off one another, and because they were insignificant and were not seen as a priority to invade at the risk of irritating another power. And it is because of this reason that presently Andorra, Liechtenstein and Luxembourg are now located between larger countries. And of course there's the exception of Monaco, completely surrounded by France. And then there's the remaining 2, San Marino and Vatican City, who are both surrounded by Italy and have traditionally depended on Italian favour for their continued existence. So going in order by largest to smallest microstate, we begin with Luxembourg. Luxembourg, officially the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, is a small landlocked country with an area of 2,586.4 square kilometers. and a population of 645,397, located in Western Europe. It borders Belgium to the west and north, Germany to the east, and France to the south. Given that Luxembourg is not particularly small compared to other microstates, and that other nations undoubtedly desired to acquire it, it is perhaps the most problematic to explain amongst the other microstates. Luxembourg was formerly governed by Austria through the Habsburgs, who expanded their power through marriage, and once controlled almost the whole area of what is now known as the Benelux, which includes the countries of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Since it was their final stronghold that wasn't connected to Austria proper and was landlocked, making it extremely difficult to manage, Clemens von Metternich, the modernising Austrian Chancellor, didn't want it back after Napoleon had invaded it and was subsequently defeated. Prussia had attacked and occupied part of it while combating Napoleon, but Austria wasn't interested in extending Prussian authority, so the Dutch believed they should take it given its position and similar language, Luxembourgish spoken by its people. Luxembourgish, the language of Luxembourg, lies on a continuum of Low Franconian dialects that includes both Dutch and German dialects. It wasn't recognised as a distinct language at the time, and its people were referred to as both Dutch and German. Thus, the Congress of Vienna granted it to the Dutch monarch, but as a distinct Grand Duchy, rather than as an extension of the Netherlands, in order to maintain an equilibrium of power. However, the Prussians were still in control of it, and compelled it to join the German Confederation, albeit not entirely. As a result, it had a mixed relationship with Prussian control, and afterwards, German and Dutch rule. When Belgium split from the Netherlands in the aftermath of the Belgian Revolution, they took Luxembourg with them, but due to its special autonomous status and distinct identity, they agreed to split as part of post-conflict discussions, and became independent as the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and later left personal union with the Netherlands due to different laws of succession concerning women. After the 1867 London Conference, Luxembourg continued to be a buffer state despite being a member of the German Zollverein, or customs union, since peace was deemed to be of more importance. Luxembourg was systemically invaded by Germany through both world wars, but evidently neither outcome was recognised afterwards, and Luxembourg has maintained its independence ever since.
Urgell.
Andorra, officially the Principality of Andorra, is a sovereign landlocked microstate with an area of 467.63 square kilometres and a population of 79,034, located on the Iberian Peninsula in the Eastern Pyrenees, bordered by France to the north and Spain to the south. Andorra was formerly the land ruled by the bishops of Urgell, but as they lacked the means to defend themselves, they turned to Catalan nobleman Lord Arnaud of Cabouet, and later his son-in-law the Count of Foix, whose descendants through royal marriages eventually became kings of Navarre in Spain and then kings in neighbouring France, while the wider diocese of Urgell was ruled by Spain. Today, both the Bishop of Urgell and the President of France are officially co-princes of Andorra. This status quo has persisted, since both parties believed it was more sensible to leave Andorra alone, and there's really no reason to invade Andorra, since it's completely surrounded by mountains and doesn't really have anything. Liechtenstein, officially the Principality of Liechtenstein, is a German-speaking and doubly landlocked microstate with an area of 160 square kilometres and a population of 39,039, located in the Alps between Austria and Switzerland. When the Duchy of Swabia, under the Holy Roman Empire, came to an end in the 13th century, its holdings were divided, and the villages that make up Liechtenstein's current area, including Scharn, Schellenberg, and Liechtenstein's present capital Vaduz, went straight to the emperor. In order to get the much sought after title of Reichsfürst, or Imperial Prince, the ambitious Austrian Liechtenstein family, which mostly controlled territory in Austria, had to acquire land that was immediately possessed by the emperor in order to qualify to be a Reichsfürst. However, they were unable to marry into the bigger royal houses to gain land, but eventually succeeded in acquiring these villages, and despite their small size, they were properly counted. In the 1800s, they found themselves wedged between Prussia and Austria in the fight for German supremacy, and subsequently lost nearly all of their lands, but still were in possession of the aforementioned villages, now named after the Liechtenstein house, and following their Swiss neighbour, declared neutrality since they were now not as geographically exposed to either Prussia or Austria. No one bothered to break neutrality because, well, just look at Liechtenstein. They never joined Switzerland either because Switzerland chose to remain neutral in order to protect itself, and because a prince is unlikely to willingly cede his territory to a republic. San Marino, officially the Republic of San Marino, or the Most Serene Republic of San Marino, is a European microstate with an area of 61.2 square kilometres and a population of 33,600 in southern Europe, completely enclosed by Italy. San Marino has only been conquered a few times over many centuries due to its isolation, rugged terrain, lack of significant natural resources, and remoteness. San Marino was highly proud of its status as the world's longest standing republic, which at least dates back to the 4th century, and thus had a desire to maintain its independence by refusing to join Italian unification. They were able to maintain their freedom because early in his famous expeditions, they offered Giuseppe Garibaldi, Italy's national hero and one of its fathers of the fatherland, sanctuary, and in return requested him to protect their sovereignty. Garibaldi was the leader of several of Italy's unification struggles, and since there were foreigners and leaders of greater territories to overthrow, a little confined republic barely dimmed Garibaldi's hopes of general Italian independence. And when unification came, Garibaldi kept his side of the deal, and San Marino remains as it is today. Monaco, officially the Principality of Monaco, is a sovereign city-state and microstate on the French Riviera, a few kilometres west of the Italian region of Liguria in Western Europe. It is bordered entirely by France to the north, east and west, and has an area of 2.02 square kilometres and a population of 38,300. A patchwork of quote Italian republics, many of which were under Spanish rule, encircled Monaco centuries ago instead of France. In the 16th century Franco-Spanish War, Monaco supported both sides and decided to become a protectorate of France, kicking out the Spanish they had earlier requested to defend them in exchange for France mostly being out of their affairs. The Italians, or more precisely the Kingdom of Sardinia, required French backing against Austria in order to conquer Lombardy, so as a sweetener, they agreed to hand over to the French the land around Monaco. In fact, Monaco's circumstance was far more similar to the aforementioned Garibaldi decision above. Monaco wasn't a part of Italy, since the Sardinians had never claimed it. The French had long ago secured the area around it, and it was also perched atop a rock that was highly defended, and not certainly worth the hassle of conquering. As Monaco had just one land border, they were theoretically more at the whim of neighbouring France than anyone else. However, by that time, France's days of conquering in Europe had come to an end, and Monaco had abolished all income taxes, allowing a large number of wealthy and influential people to move there and have an immense stake in the principality remaining independent, which remains to this day. Vatican City, officially Vatican City State, is a landlocked independent city-state, microstate and enclave within Rome, Italy, with an area of 49 hectares or 121 acres and a population of about 453. It is the smallest state in the world by both area and population. To put a long story short, Pope Pius XI, who obviously had high exceptional standing and a lot of worldwide power, didn't want to pay taxes to and be subject to the laws of a newly unified Italy, and recognised Italian King Victor Emmanuel III as the ruler of Rome. Pope Pius, as head of the Catholic Church, could thus figuratively request and obtain his own country, and on February 11th, 1929, the Lateran Treaty between the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy was adopted by Pope Pius's Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Gasparri and Prime Minister and Head of Government Benito Mussolini on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III. The treaty, which became effective on June 7th, 1929, acknowledged the newly united Kingdom of Italy as a sovereign state, with King Victor Emmanuel III as its ruler, created Vatican City as a separate sovereign state, and allowed Italy to continue having cordial relations with Catholics across the world. This has been me, Jack, and please, if you're from one of the many microstates I didn't talk about in this video, or from the ones I talked about in this video, please leave a comment down below.